listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Hey, and on This Week in Pharmacy, we are getting ready. I love going to events. So if you're going to the McKesson Idea Share 2024, which is going to be in New Orleans, am I saying that correct? Is it New Orleans or is it New Orleans? I think if you're like from New Orleans, you might say New Orleans, but other people will say New Orleans. But I'm going to ask my friend and someone who is partnered with the Pharmacy Podcast Network at the Idea Share, Matt Coakley, are you there?
I am. It's good to see you, Todd.
Good to see
you. And I would say New Orleans, but I think you're probably right with the locals saying it more like New Orleans.
New Orleans. Is this New Orleans or is it New Orleans? Hey, I love New Orleans. I love the energy that's there. The food is amazing. If I lived there, I'd probably be 30 or 40 pounds heavier. But it's going to be a wonderful event. I've always thought that McKesson did an amazing event at the Idea Share. You can see up on your screen, if you're listening to the podcast and you don't see us on YouTube, that's okay. You can just find this information if you Google McKesson Idea Share. But if you want to go to the website, McKessonideashare.com, once again, where independents connect. So Waypoint is investing in this conference. Tell us why you'd put out money. Why would you invest in Idea Share?
Sure. Well, McKesson was the first of the big three wholesalers that we went to the trade show for, and it's always a good event. We have a great mix of new people that we meet and existing clients. So we're really promoting the Pharmacy Insurance Group, which is a division of what we call the Waypoint Company. And that's really picked up some popularity. It's something that we're just getting out trying to spread the word. And McKesson gives us the opportunity. We'll have several thousand people there all under one roof, and we'll get to explain to them how we can help them. And it's just always a good time.
So the Waypoint team, for our listeners who may not have heard of Waypoint or the Coakley family, Matt, Ben, and your dad who started it all, is an entire movement in the pharmacy profession to merge together healthcare, wealth care, assuring that our community pharmacies can stand and can thrive in order to, once again, fill and pour back into the communities that they're serving. And Waypoint delivers multiple services and consultations and guidance as a Waypoint, as an organization that's really helping to drive direction and leadership. Give our listeners just a little overview of what a Waypoint does for independent community.
Sure. That's a great segue to kind of how we got here. And it can be a long story. We'll try to keep it short because I don't want to put anybody to sleep out there. But Waypoint, we're small town people at heart. So my dad, Rick, is the patriarch of our company. He doesn't come to a lot of trade shows anymore, but several McKesson people and probably some people that listen to this will have met him. He's a small town Illinois guy, and he joined the Marine Corps because the Vietnam War was going on at that time. Got stationed in Charleston, met my mom, got married. And when I say in Charleston, got stationed in Charleston, but lived in the outskirts of Charleston. Started a financial services business in the early days of that. And most people around him were trying to figure out how to deal with ultra wealthy people in Charleston. And that just wasn't really his vibe. So he started going to small towns like Walterboro and Somerton and Santee and meeting people in these towns and really trying to help them preserve their towns by keeping some of the wealth in that town. There's a huge desire to do that where we grew up, and we've learned later all over the country, a lot of people that grow up in towns like this want to stay in these towns, but they're economically under attack by giant corporations and just the pressure to move to where there's more economic opportunity. So Dad started working with business owners, mostly family business owners in these small towns. And when my brother came to work for our company in 2000, he identified that a large segment of our client base were pharmacy owners, and that started the Waypoint journey in really heavily into the world of pharmacy. And everything we've done for the last 18, 19 years has been designed to try to help pharmacies as the primary method of helping these small towns. So we've developed multiple programs, as Todd kind of alluded to. The Pharmacy Insurance Group allows somebody affiliated with the pharmacy to get paid for Medicare advice that the pharmacy usually is already giving. We have all kinds of different options. We have Big Tree Medical is on the screen there. That's somebody that we've helped get out in the community to provide primary care, which there's a lack of in some of these areas. We have a program. It's funny, Todd, when people start to realize who you are and that you really care about these pharmacies and the towns that they serve, people start coming to you. So we had a guy come to us that has a credit card processing savings program and said, can you help me get this in front of people? And we said, well, if it's going to save pharmacies money, keep money in that community, then that's something that we want to buy into. So we're really in the early phases of that, but we're starting to see pharmacies saving upwards of $5,000 to $10,000 a year just on their credit card processing without really having to switch anything. So pretty easy way to put money back in their pocket and back in the community. But just anything that we can find out there that is going to try to enhance what they're doing, or if my brother was on, he would say, we wanted to get as much money flowing through the pharmacy outside of the PBM model as possible. You guys can go down the podcast channels that Todd has and see plenty of PBM content. Y'all know a lot more about that than I do. The one thing I think everybody agrees on is they take money out of the system. They don't encourage money to stay in your pocket. So that's really what all this stuff is about. Doing anything we can to just help the pharmacy and the people involved in those communities control as much of their dollars as possible.
That's a really good overview, Matt. I'm really proud of the Coakley family and sticking to it. You're standing behind community pharmacies. It's how you've built your business over the years. I've seen you at so many conferences over the last 20 years that I've been in the pharmacy industry, starting with your father. So there's like a legacy here that continues. Booth 103, once again, for listeners
yes, sir.
Planning to go. Booth 103, McKesson Idea Share 2024. I'm looking forward to seeing you. We're going to be doing some podcasting in the Waypoint booth, and then we're going to be mixing it up with some other organizations as well. I can't wait to see you there, Matt, and a shout out to your brother, Ben. And I know he's not going to be able to make it, but you and I are going to spend some time together when we're there in New Orleans.
Absolutely. Excited, and appreciate you having me on this morning, Todd. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Matt.
This is Debbie Marcello, host of the Happier at Home PRN podcast. Did you ever consider all of the potential cash revenue that you're giving away? What if you were to learn about services and products that you could keep in-house as opposed to referring your customers out? On my podcast, Happier at Home PRN, learn from the experts who have expanded their services to increase revenue, earn out-of-pocket payments, all while increasing the quality of care in their community. Listen to our past podcasts and join us for future episodes where we focus on growing your pharmacy into a thriving business. And we're not talking about keeping your head above water. We're talking about wealth and the survival of your pharmacy.
Hey, welcome back to This Week in Pharmacy. I am your host, founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Todd Urey. Some people call me the RX Podfather. The guy who actually gave me that name, calling me the Podfather, is back. He's no stranger to community pharmacy, technology, and or TWIRx. The one and only Sean Nairn. You're back in there.
My man, great to be back in Brownsville, PA.
I know, like at least you didn't wait like 4 more months or something like that to come back this time.
Listen, man, I'm a very busy man. I mean, maybe you don't know. I'm busy. No, I love coming down here, buddy. We have such a good time. It's a great show. You're doing great things for pharmacy. In fact, I got a real treat for you today, buddy.
What?
You're going to blow the lid off. This is an exclusive for the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
I can't wait.
Right? So
you brought somebody with you, so it's a surprise.
So myself and a few other very smart people out there, including today's surprise guest, started a clinical service company. I'm going to let him tell you what we do. I will say the name because I love the name. And even though it was him that came up with the name, but the name is Architect Health, right? And we're basically, he'll explain what we do, but it's a really apt name for what we do. So today I brought with me Luke Shoemaker. He's our partner in Architect Health. Todd, you want to pass that over to Luke and he can kind of break the ice, tell you about Architect, and I'll dive in when we need something funny to be said.
I'm going to introduce this guy the proper way. He's
handsome, dude. I know that. He's good looking.
Dr. Lucas Shoemaker.
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
And now we can revert to Luke, but you always have to start. I'm teaching every pharmacy student I get to go visit with Mark Garofoli. I love this guy, Dr. Garofoli. He introduces me to the P3s. And then when I shake their hand, I make them say doctor, their name, and then we revert to first name. Just so for the rest of their lives, they need to get used to doing that. When you introduce yourself to any professional, especially if it's a fellow HCP, a nurse, a doctor, it should be, I'm Dr. Mark, Luke Shoemaker, but you can just call me Luke.
That's a great point. I never use that. And I always, when students come and say Dr. Shoemaker, I get a little taken aback. I'm like, oh, I forgot. But you can't forget, like you said. And I've only had to pull that doctor card a couple times on some nasty
flex
doctor.
Flex your muscle,
yeah,
Dr.
It is
Luke.
important that we don't forget that we are doctors and,
yes.
we deserve a space here.
Listen, we can start the Dr. Luke show is what
Yeah.
we can do on the podcast. We'll give him some time
Dr.
every week.
Luke show.
I got
That'd
it.
be good. I'd go for that. So I'm excited that you're both here. I'm really interested in understanding more about I can't say it. Architect.
Architect Health.
Just say the name like an architect.
Architect.
Who's a guy that designs buildings?
Listen,
An
we
architect.
would have been an Architect Health, but you can't use the word architect if you're not an architect.
How about that?
So we
This
had
is
to
a
change it up a
little
little
known- This is a
bit.
little known law out there. You can't be architect, whatever, from a business name. You have, unless you're an architect.
True.
Like you can't be
You shouldn't.
pizza shop, the pharmacy pizza shop, but you can't be the architect pizza shop.
That's right.
Because you can't use the name architect if you're not an
Who
architect
came up with
business.
the name? Was it Lucas or was it?
Yeah, it was me. It was me. It
Dude,
was
we went
like
through about 20 names.
obviously,
Remember
yeah.
the name debacle? What a
So
fucking
many
nightmare that
different
was.
names. It's hard to create a business these days because everybody bought up all the different names. But this is where we are. Now, it ended up lending to what Sean said. It lended up to really says what we're doing. We're laying the foundation, building blueprints for pharmacies to learn how to do the clinical game correctly and within their workflow, and using our people. So it ended up kind of working out in our favor.
It's a better name than what
Yeah.
the other ones that we thought we liked. It really
Right.
is.
I like this. Architect Health. So architecthealth.com. And it says your blueprint for better patient care. I got to understand, what is this? If I'm listening to the show right now, I'm a community pharmacy owner. How do I leverage Architect Health?
Yep. So what Architect Health is we're a workforce solution for pharmacies who are trying to get into the clinical game. They're in the clinical game, or they don't have enough time to put towards it. They have so many patients that they can't get to the full spectrum of the work that they have. So what we are is, think of almost like an Uber or a care.com model. We have a workforce pool of pharmacists. We get into the pharmacy, we complete the clinical tasks for them so that they can, at the end of the day, pick up missing revenue that's left on the table. If you look at the financial figures from a lot of pharmacies throughout this country, a lot of dollars are left on the table just because people can't get to the work that is there in the clinical, because we are so worried about the issues going in pharmacy with reimbursement, buying, selling, all this types of stuff in the pharmacy day-to-day workflow, that sometimes the clinical falls off the back end. One, because of how much time is involved, and two, people just don't understand it. So we're there to teach them and provide the services on their behalf.
That is so cool. Sean, is this being mixed in to the AcoreRx model?
100%. We actually employ Architect in our in our model, because while we provide, and this is true for a lot of pharmacies, and they need to consider this, a lot of guys don't have the bandwidth at all to do their clinical services, and we're a solution for that. However, even the guys a little bigger, a little bigger companies, the bigger you are, the more opportunities you have. So for example, at Acor, we use Architect as well, because we just don't have the manpower to get to all of the clinical opportunities that we have. So while we certainly try, and our model involves doing that, there's just so many opportunities today that people don't even realize how many opportunities are out there. And, Architect and Luke we know every opportunity. So when we look at your store, we can tell them, hey, here's all your opportunities. We probably tell people, right, Luke, we probably tell opportunities to people that they didn't even know they had.
Yep, 100%. I typically, a recent pharmacy we just got in, I started working for him within 1 month. He was very hesitant to start the clinical programs that are available through, PPCN, CPSN. And then within 1 month, he is now trying to do services himself, because he's finally saying, oh, I didn't realize how much money was on the table. I didn't understand what was there. But when I go in, I have, my templates set up to go through the patient list and get people realizing, oh, being able to see the data really helps people understand it. So I go in and try to go through that. And to Sean's point, mo money, mo problems, mo scripts, mo problems. So even if you do have the staff and a lot of prescriptions, patients coming in the door, you have to spend a lot of time, doing your internal audits, working through scripts, calling doctors, calling insurance companies due to rejection. So as big as you get and as successful as a pharmacy you are, you still also have the time regulations that a smaller pharmacy has in bandwidth issues. So when I do talk to people, they typically think it's the smaller pharmacies, the people who aren't able to do clinical services because of their knowledge. But it is, our successful, our efficient, our winner pharmacies also are heavily using services like this to their advantage to get that money on the table.
So Sean, is this something that a community pharmacy can implement with, as long as they have some kind of new workflow, or can this just be implemented from more of a clinical treatment follow-up perspective?
Well, so when you think about it, our goal is to become the clinical arm of that pharmacy when they don't have one.
Okay.
Or certainly, again, we mentioned the model where maybe we support a clinical arm because of the breadth of services that are out there. But for a traditional independent pharmacy, one guy, two techs working every day, he just doesn't have the bandwidth to get there. So we become the clinical arm of, essentially, we're your clinical pharmacist. That's the easiest way to explain it.
That's
cool.
100%. And there are several pharmacies where we are the ones doing the clinical work for them. And as much as, when you're in the game, what's going on with the clinical pharmacy. But when we talk about Acor Pharmacy being, a leader in the industry, we talk about Brandon and Kyle with the Cash Plus models. We talk about different pharmacy disruptors. Not every pharmacy is like that. You think of your mom and pop shops, some of the independent pharmacies, they haven't changed that much and they don't know what to do. So we go in and help them get to that point and do the work for them. They don't want to do it. They don't want to change. A lot of these guys are getting to the point where they're trying to retire. They don't want to start a new program, but they realize that they have to do this to stay in the game and keep their doors open. So we work with a lot of pharmacies like that too.
What's great about the model, Todd, is that we threw, the proverbial, a lot of mud on the wall to see what stuck on how to price this out. And, basically the model is, for an independent, the model is you can't lose money. You're never going to pay us more than what we make you. And traditionally it's, anywhere from 50-50, sometimes depending upon the opportunities and the dollar amounts. You have to understand that it can't always be, a true 50-50 split. But, based on the services that we provide, you're making money and doing nothing. Luke's doing the lift, or Luke's team, I should say, is doing the lift. So, and basically, while we're talking about this, let's not forget to get a plug-in for clinical pharmacists that are looking for positions, right? So let's go back. We can go back to that. Let's still fed out the model a little more. vet out the model a little more, but then we'll put out a plea for clinical pharmacists.
That was my game plan.
The old shout out, huh?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's also important to note that we are working in collaboration with CPSN. So for people who aren't aware, we work directly with the people in charge of CPSN to make sure what we are doing aligns with their vision and what their standards are as well. So we're not, just haphazardly, going in and doing this work. We work directly with CPSN. I meet weekly with PPCN, so the leaders there, to make sure, we are abiding by their rules, their statutes, and doing the work correctly within your pharmacy so that the work that's being done is correct. We work with, we've been working with reconciliation issues, pharmacy software issues, working with e-care plan vendors, within PPCN models to try to figure out solutions with why things are going wrong and data transmission. Looking at data, how to accrue data, how to use that data to further implement contracts in PPCN. So at the end of the day, it's a team effort in the independent pharmacy right now. And, we are trying to move that dial to the point where we are seeing, better results for everybody.
Sean, is there a call center component to this of like customer service or something like that?
There is not. So let me tell you something. Call center is a dirty word in the space that we play in, because the deal is, and this is fair. I mean, I agree, right? I've often said that, what's missing in the mail order models is the direct patient engagement. And that hurts. So that's this model. We 100% do it out of the stores. Our team member goes to the location, uses the pharmacy's computer. They're pretty much skilled in most of the computer, the pharmacy operating systems that are out there today. They know how to go in, they know how to mine the data to try to find the patients that we need to call. But we call the patients directly. And another key is from the pharmacy. This way, the phone number, when it comes in, it's from the pharmacy. This way, we're fulfilling the obligation of having it be a pharmacy employee that's completing the services. That's a big requirement in a lot of the arrangements. So, literally, this is an on-site. It can be face-to-face. Sometimes it can be tele from the pharmacy in some cases, but primarily it's a face-to-face model. The call center model is, basically doesn't work in these contracts. CPSN doesn't want it. The health plans don't want it. Okay. The health plan can do it themselves, right? The health plan can have their own call center if that's what they really are trying to accomplish. What they'd rather do is have it be more personal, a little more intimate engagement with the client, with the patients.
You're going to get a lot more bang for your buck when you say, hey, my name is Luke. I'm calling with Sean. He asked me to give you a call from Acorn Pharmacy, rather than, hey, I'm calling with your insurance company, or I work with a program, or it's a phone number they're not going to pick up that number. Everybody's screens are called. I don't pick up numbers I don't know either. Yep. So that's kind of why this model works better. And that's why we're driving boots on ground in the pharmacy, because you're going to yield much better results than, just randomly cold calling people.
That's awesome. All right. So how do you scale this? Take us through the steps. I'm a community pharmacy owner. I want to implement these services. Take me through like the steps. What do I have to do to make this happen?
Well, first off, you can either go to our website or find us on LinkedIn too. I have links to forms that you can fill out if you're a pharmacy, or if you're a pharmacist looking to be a workforce pool member, you can fill out these forms. And then I will reach out to you via email or phone call and let you know what our availability is in your area. Right now, we are in the southwestern and, growing to the western region of Pennsylvania, looking to get into the eastern part of Pennsylvania. We have talked with pharmacists in New York City area to start growing these. We are trying to take it a little bit slower so that we don't, overgrow without the support in the areas that we need. So we're taking strategic approaches based off data and availability throughout the country and where we're going to start these services. But we have been, getting some pharmacists and pools in different areas. So if you reach out, and if we have enough pharmacies that reach out from a specific area, then we know that we can actually get some pharmacists to work there too. But the main way is, getting in contact with us through our website or LinkedIn.
For pharmacists out there, this is a great opportunity for either a side hustle, right? If you're looking for some extra money or trying to pay off student loans, we all know how expensive school is nowadays. It's literally makes national headline news. It's a great side hustle for a couple hours a week. If you want to do more, if you're in the consulting pharmacy space, is right up your alley. If you're doing in the LTC world, or it can be limited. It can be 3, 4, 5 hours a week. It can be a full 40-hour-a-week job if we have enough pharmacies in your area to provide you with 40 hours. We're happy to do so. But for anybody, any pharmacist out there can really do this. You do have to go through the training traditionally the CPESN training today, because they're driving the bus as far as establishing opportunities. We do expect eventually to have opportunities from any number of opportunities. Someday, I hope we're big enough that we go out and get our own opportunities.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the goal. Luke is the president. Luke's the driver of the bus, right? He sees these opportunities. He goes out and embraces the neighborhood, the pharmacies there. The director of CPSN for that district has conversations with them, asks them what they need, and then we try to match, a pharmacy with a pharmacist. And, we make that love connection, and, everybody lives happily ever after.
And to that point, we try to make sure it's the same person in the pharmacy too, so that there is that continuity with the pharmacy and pharmacist relationship and the pharmacist and the patient relationship. That way you get better results knowing that, hey, I called this person, 3 months ago, last month, I know what's going on with them, rather than it's a new person in the door all the time, where you might see that with floating pharmacists or, as an example, traveling nurses. We need to have a continuity of care for this as well. So we try to make sure it's the same pharmacist. To the workforce pool member point that Sean was making earlier, it's really, customizable to the person working. Like, you are working for yourself through our company. You get to, say how many hours you want to work, when you can work. And then as long as that's okay with the pharmacy, it's great. An example recently is I had a workforce pool member. Her daughter has a out of the blue soccer tournament coming up, and she's like, well, I can't work these days. So she just worked with the pharmacies. Hey, I'm going to come in twice this week, and then twice in the week following to make up the hours that I couldn't make because of this, thing that was sprung upon me. It's very customizable. You can work however you want, which is a nice little feature. I think you're not going to find many jobs, especially in pharmacy, where you can do that type of stuff.
Talk a little bit about, Luke. What was it? What was that one on? Was it RxE2 or whatever? Again, I know it's just
the
like,
clinical
what
trials
is it?
Company.
How do you know that?
I know everything, Sean. Come on.
Jeez, oh man! I thought I was pulling a fast one on the Podfather.
Nah.
Yeah, so tell them,
Not
they
get anything past
they
the
called
Podfather.
us. Luke can share a little bit about. They were, we tried. We didn't really get, we didn't get that particular project off the ground, but now we know of each other. We can help them down the road. Do you want to tell them what RxE2 is?
Yeah, kind of going back to our point about, call centers and how they don't work as efficiently. RxE2 is a company who's trying to clinical trial, participants. So, they wanted people at the pharmacy level to engage with their own patients rather than, calling from a cold list of people. And they thought they would get better engagement that way. So we've been trying to work with them to, make these phone calls for pharmacies. Again, it's the bandwidth of technician. Well, actually, this can't be done by technicians, but it's the bandwidth of the pharmacists on their level. How are we going to make all these phone calls? So we were trying to come up with a solution there. We are working with them. It's a little bit more difficult because sometimes you don't know where the studies are going to be, and the planning gets a little skewed. But it's, again, better results coming from the pharmacy level. Again, it's an opportunity that we've been looking towards, making strides and getting workforce pool members involved with that as well.
Isn't it Finken? Isn't it? What's the guy's name that runs this? His last name's Finken or something like that?
I don't know if that's who Luke.
That's not who. Yeah,
ours was through CPSN. I think the initial contact for us.
Okay,
and that's a good point Sean brings up too with RxE2. You might, if you're watching this and you're a PPCN member, you might know what opportunities you have. There are other opportunities, out there that we're working on in other states, that might not be in Pennsylvania. But we're also working with outcomes. Where if you have your own clinical initiatives that you're trying to get off the ground that you don't have the staff for, we can help find solutions for that too. I have a pharmacy in New York that wants me to help them find a DSME provider. We're working on trying to figure out those solutions in the logistics of that. So it's not just limited to, CPSN work as well. We're willing to work with you to try to get all clinical initiatives that you're doing off the ground and make sure that the work is being done.
And there's going to be more. I mean, some people might even have, and again, this is just the mud against the wall, but if you have an opportunity where, to recruit patients and, you're like, how am I going to do all that? Maybe track us down and we can do it. It doesn't have to be affiliated with a larger company. If you just at the local sort of level, if you have a health plan within your city that, you want to do a program for, we can help. We can help design the program. We can help you fulfill your end of the program, for literally, it's going to cost you nothing and you're going to do limited lift. Luke's team does all the lift. You just get the checks. I mean, it's really I think that anybody should use it that has clinical opportunities, because by the time you pay your staff to do this, is another thing that people don't realize. The average independent pharmacist, he thinks that his person is out there doing it. Well, maybe they are, but you're still paying that person to do it, right? Their time, they're billing you for their time. We're going to do the same thing, only you're absolutely going to be on the positive end of that. We are the model, and it's kind of sort of proprietary, or we can share it with you at another point, the way the pay structure works.
Definitely.
So, but that protects, it protects you, that you're always in the black. So if you have a person that you feel like is dedicated to your clinical team, give them something else to do. Put them in the community and let them do vaccines. Put them in the senior high rise and let them run a bingo. You're probably going to get much more return from them doing that when we can come in and clean up the clinical, and I know you're going to be in the black. So utilize that person in another capacity.
Yeah, it's a safety guard too. A lot of pharmacies, especially with the issues going on with reimbursement, losing money, they don't want to hire someone for work that might not be enough to cover a pharmacist's salary. So this is, think Uber again. You're ordering a pharmacist for the hours that you have work for. You're just paying them for those hours. You're not paying them from all the HR back end. You're not paying them for training. Architect Health handles all that type of stuff. They just walk in the door, do the work for you, and leave. You're just paying them for the hours that are there, and we never charge you more than what is being billed by the pharmacist. So, worst case scenario, it's a net zero for you. You don't make money, you're not going to lose money. And then another thing to what Sean was saying, a lot of people try to do it themselves and don't realize that the work is not being done by the pharmacy staff due to workforce limitations, time, things going wrong. 100% of $0 is still $0. So we need to, rethink the way we think about clinical services too, because I do think this is opening the door to a whole new opportunity for pharmacists graduating now. There's going to be a whole ton of clinical opportunity, especially looking at Pennsylvania now, provider status. What is that going to lead into? Medical billing. It's a dream for many. It's going to be a nightmare at the same time in terms of documentation, billing, reconciliation. So there's going to be a lot of work there that, Architect Health can help your pharmacies with as well.
All right, Sean, how about them Steelers coming up in 2024, 2025 season?
I'm going to the Vegas game. I can tell you that much right now. What? Yeah,
That's awesome.
I think they're stacked up nice. Listen, this is as good as opportunities. I give them credit because I was very down on the Steelers for a while. However, I am looking forward to the season. I like what they've done. Was it Omar Khan? Is that his name? I think he's made some nice moves. And listen, I'm anxious to see what happens at this point.
All right, I want you guys to keep your eyes open. NCAA, the new video game is coming out. And my godson is it is going to be in the video game. So
what?
Yeah, I can't wait to
It's pretty exciting.
So
Are they putting Chris Antipas on the cover?
They're not going to put, no, it's still, I don't know who they're putting on the cover, but Jelani, number 97 for the Yukon Huskies. And there he is right there.
Oh,
number
wow.
97.
Who is that? Your godson?
That's my godson. And he's going to the NFL. So you heard it here first on TWIRx.
Good for him.
So he was featured on an ESPN several times last season.
Does he provide clinical services to pharmacies as well?
He doesn't, but UConn has a pharmacy school. So a shout out to the UConn school. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I guess Jelani told me that a bunch of people thought he was a pharmacy student because of how many references I was making to the Yukon Huskies and Jelani at the same time. But here's the special thing about him. I want to just spell this out. they keep using him as a fullback for short yardage. So anything like 3 yards and 1 yard and 2 yards.
I gotcha.
And he's never not made a touchdown when
That's
they put him on
the refrigerators, like the refrigerator.
He's the new bus.
He was in our day. He was refrigerator Perry. Remember that?
But he's so fast. So I think they're going to have to make up.
Congrats to him, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. So you're going to have to watch him in 2024, 2025.
We'll keep an eye. Did he get drafted, or you're saying he's
this is his last year.
He's a senior now.
Last year at UConn.
Okay.
Good. He's gonna get drafted.
Congrats, man. Good luck.
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate you being here, Luke. You have to promise this is not your last time on TWIRx.
We'll be back.
And we have to have you back on This Week in Pharmacy. And we want to keep up with our architect and what you're doing as well. The next time you come back, we want to talk to a pharmacy that has been using it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually something we've been looking into, the past week. We're getting some testimonials together. We'll post some videos as well. So we'll definitely get someone in here.
Please do.
We're on LinkedIn too, like you said before.
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
Bring pharmacy students. I want Duquesne. I want WVU. I want Pitt. I want all you pharmacy students. You guys are close to the studio. Come to TWIRx. Let's all hang out and see what the future pharmacy sounds like.
You have them you should come down and ask them what's going on. Do you bring them down and ask them what's going on in their world?
Yeah.
Is that what you do? Like what's going on at the universities? And
yeah, we want to hear
what they're learning, where they're going.
Absolutely. Yeah. I want to hear what the future is. If I'm going to make a business out of this, I'm only 51. So I got to keep doing this for another 20 years.
Keep rubbing that in, dude.
I want to have these pharmacy students. I want to be they're my boss someday, basically.
Yeah.
They're my listeners.
That's right.
So, yeah. All right.
Well, thanks for having us, man. We appreciate you helping us get the word out.
Absolutely.
Architect Health.
And that. If you want to put the in that, you get bonus points.
Thanks, buddy.
This is This Week in Pharmacy. We appreciate you listening. Please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, any podcast directories out there. Give our sponsors a shout out. Today's episode was brought to you by IPC, which is the Independent Pharmacy Cooperative. We appreciate them. And Happier at Home, which is your franchising organization that you can build a home care agency attached to your community pharmacy and operate them as separate businesses. And there are tax advantages to that. And you'll hear more about that from Sykes and Company, who's going to be doing a special series with me. You cannot see the company, or the company name on this. This is my favorite ice eating and drinking ice water glass. But it's from Sykes and Company. We'll hear more from them. But Sean, really appreciate you being down here. Don't be a stranger. Come on down to TWIRx.
I love it, Todd. Thanks for having me again, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
This episode is sponsored by Independent Pharmacy Cooperative, widely known as IPC. Established in 1983, IPC is the nation's largest group purchasing organization owned by independent pharmacy. With a mission of maximizing the success of community pharmacists, IPC works to provide members with access to effective programs and services designed to enhance profitability for independent pharmacy. Read more about our mission by checking out our website at ipcrx.com. That's ipcrx.com.
Hey, and on This Week in Pharmacy, we have a special guest that is not a pharmacist and is not even in pharmacy specifically. This content creator, Michael Mann, is the host of Planetary Health First, Mars Next. He is a community builder. I'm proud to be his friend, connected with him in December of 2023. Really, right off the very beginning, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jamie Wilkie, who is gathering and coaching pharmacists that want to stand out, and branding is so important. I just wrote a guest blog on her newsletter about branding and about how important pharmacists, if you're going the route of entrepreneurship and you want to stand out, you have to brand yourself. You have to look professional. You have to put out something that is going to attract people in the niche that you're looking at. And look at Mr. Mann's LinkedIn profile. This is where the public B2B crowd comes to look at someone to see what are they about. The first thing you see is his emblem
logo, Planetary Health First, Mars Next, podcasters, newsletter, content creator, a community builder. I am proud to welcome This Week in Pharmacy, Michael Mann. This is a treat for us and for our listeners. What is up? Like, how are you?
I'm really good. I really appreciate you having me on. I love what you're doing. Like I said, we had you on recently. You are really like the godfather podcaster. And I do still have the FOMO podcast, envy of the wall, my whiteboard to your like real thing, but I'm going to be there one day, but I'm glad I haven't done it because it's iteration. And if I did it today and spent all this money on a backdrop, it might not be the right backdrop. So, and that's the power of content, get started and move and go. But, anyway, and the name, everyone asked me, what the heck is a name? Planetary Health First, Mars Next. Well, my family has a farm. We're really interested in solar. It's a solar farm we're trying to get going. My cousin has live solar farm in North Carolina that's powering. Is interesting enough, New Jersey, because it's really debits and credits. There's no way to know where electrons really come from.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, I didn't know that until I was involved with that. But the mission and purpose of Planetary Health First Mars is really to accelerate conversations. I am in healthcare. I've been in healthcare. I am not a clinician. I'm not a pharmacist. But to me, it's there's so much awareness and education that needs to happen. And so I feel really privileged to be able to try to continue to scratch my itch and have people on that are doing some super amazing stuff, whether it be mental health, psychedelics, the forefront of research, whether it be healthcare, AI, all different topics and organizations, companies. And so I feel like I'm just getting started. I will be no more than 7 days out, 100 episodes, and hope to have next year 100 more. So
Congratulations. That's hard to do. There's been so many people that I've helped to start podcasts that the rest of their lives eclipse the commitment that they thought they could keep, and they feel bad. And I talk with them and say, listen, and that's, I think, the power. And another point of what we do at Pharmacy Podcast Network is you'll have the exciting feeling of starting something. I mean, you and I get that all the time. Every time we put out an episode, we get excited, right? So there's endorphins, and there's a whole psychology to being content creators and creating good content that our niche audience that we're after to listen and to absorb. And when I tell these people that will quit a podcast after a while because they just can't keep it up, because it's a lot harder than what people think. I go to them and I'm like, listen, this is the purpose of a network. The network, you can insert yourself at any time, at any interval. If you want to come on once a month, once every other month, once, every 6 months, whatever it is. But I always say to these people that are trying to build something, whether it's inside pharmacy and healthcare, even outside healthcare, makes me think of one of my friends, Barry Young. Barry Young grew the largest long-term care pharmacy in the Pittsburgh area that UPMC ended up buying. And that was not his passion. His passion was vodka. And he became a vodka distiller and maker based on his grandfather's legend and everything that he's done. And now that's his business. So that's his passion. And so I want to talk with our listeners today, between you and I, Michael. I want to talk today about content creation and content creators specifically in healthcare, and how there is a responsibility of those content creators that the layperson that might be talking about tennis shoes or basketball or something fun, corgis. I'm a big corgi fan. And so those people do not have a responsibility like you and I have, because you and I, our audiences are HCPs, healthcare providers. And when we deliver content, I feel that it needs to rise up and it needs to be backed once in a while, if not as much as possible, evidence-based, referencing articles, journals, getting people to disagree, but
eventually come to some kind of agreement and really become explorers. So that's why I personally love the Planetary Health First, Mars Next name, because it reminds me of an explorer. And it's like you're out on your boat. Your boat is your podcast, and you're floating in the waters of healthcare, which can be pretty treacherous. And you're exploring, and you're bringing people to and on the boat once in a while. And I got to be part of it. So it's great. And what do you think of that? What do you think of the responsibility of a content creator that is a creator of content in the world of healthcare?
Yeah, I think you bring up a really extremely important point, and there is absolutely a responsibility. And I think there also is the challenge, because there's so many things out there that you and I don't even know of how to game the system, right? With social media, with TikToks and all the, machine learning and AI that's going on, that the virality of it, that could be totally having nothing to do with anything that's legit, or it could be lies, so I think that in itself, and I'm glad I don't know those systems, because really I'm just continuing to have people on that I'm really interested in. So what I've begun doing with some of my panel discussions is, when I'm having one thought leader that might represent or might be a clinician, and one might be someone in the med tech space, and one might be a venture capitalist space. And this is just from learning by doing. I didn't know, but they were like, hey, can you put this out there? I was like, okay. And I now I'm putting it out there, and should do that on all of them. A disclaimer, this is not the views of the show, nor the views of the participants or the other organizations of the participants. Now, I guess that's just one of those corporate disclaimers, but I think it starts with that, and then probably should go ahead and say I'm not a clinician. So, but then also I would like, my hope is just bringing awareness. So there's a woman I'd like to have on, her son who has mental health, has been incarcerated. To me, that's just trying to bring awareness to a topic, but I'd also like to have the other sides of that as well. So it's more trying to bring topics to the forefront, and that I'm fascinated by. So of this point in time, I feel like myself as a journalist that I've never, even though I'm in the middle point of my life, and I guess it varies with our life expectancy as technology and whatnot, but I really feel like if I would have known what I knew, I would have done more in journalism, because that's, to me, where my approach is trying to discover, what is out there or needs to be covered more. And one of the things I feel like that really should be covered more, the fact that I find frustration, and this is healthcare, and I'm going to land the plane. Sorry, I'm talking a lot, but why we don't have 232 and more extensive, robust question about Google, Amazon, all these big tech, and Apple, and they have so much power using the internet and technology and monopoly, like for instance, Google. But then we have Live Nation. Our big government goes after Live Nation on ticket sales, but we don't go after others. So I'll stop there.
Talk to us about, because this is very interesting. Talk to us about Section 232 investigations, the effect of imports on national.
So anyway, I'm going to be talking to about 232. I guess so we're talking about 232. And so the interesting thing about 232 is, as best as I know it, is really when you look at it, and this happened the other day on a show, I had a guest, we're talking about women's health. And I think 232, one of the biggest detriments possibly to women's health or young girls' health is Instagram, with the amount of harm and all that's happened with what these social media sites are doing. So I feel like unfortunately, there's just not enough robust conversations with that. And, the bodily harm to women and eating disorders, it's evident and clear. So I wish there was more of a robust, legitimate conversation about that alone as a way to, prevent and do less harm and to help with healthcare. So I think social media, these big companies have a responsibility, TikTok and Instagram, Facebook, you name it.
So I did not grow up with social media. I'm a Gen Xer, born in 1972. So my teenage years with things that happened that was part of normal growing up and as a teenager, witnessing bullying in school, witnessing cliques and just the normal things that every group of 13 to 17-year-olds go through. However, my upbringing at that point in my life, in my teenage years, were not compounded by social media. And when I left the school, if there was some form of bullying, and I was picked on because I was short. I'm still short. I'm only 5'7", but back in the day I was even shorter. So I was the small kid. I was in a Catholic private school, which is horrible for people that get picked on because you can't escape, and you only have a class of 60 people that all know you since the time you were a kindergartner. And so you get labeled as something, and you have to make do with the role that you've been given as the shrimp or the short kid or the kid with the big head or whatever that was that you went through with that bullying. However, when I left the school, I didn't have to put up with it on social media because kids from just a psychology of, we could bring a child psychologist in and find out why we do it. But they love the mob mentality. They love grouping together. They love, because I think that made children feel safe, that as long as I'm picking on someone else and I'm not getting picked on, and I can hide behind this popularity and this thing to do because of boredom or whatever else comes into it all. When I left school, I didn't have to continue to get berated about being little and being picked on. When I was in grade school and in my early teen years, switched schools in 9th grade, went to a public school. My life completely transformed, got into athletics, deeper into athletics and track. And it was a wonderful experience at that point. But the point is, do we as a society and as content creators have a responsibility to go back to some governing body, whether that's the FCC? I think that's where it probably needs to be, the Federal Communications Commission, and saying, hey, cigarettes are not allowed to be smoked by people that are under the age of 18 and or purchased by people that are under the age of 18, right? I think that's what the national law is. It might be different state to state, but they've chosen that magical age of 18 for some reason. I think, in my opinion, as a parent of 4 daughters and watching how social media has impacted them, and my younger children are not allowed on social media, I don't think children should even have access from a legal perspective to social media until they're 18 years old, because I think it brings in artificial factors to growing up. And growing up is so hard as it is, to compound that and make it even more complex with what can happen in social media and through social media, as well as the click mentality that we are on, where if you look at a post that you put up and it only got 90 likes, and then all of a sudden something blows up and it has 8,000 likes. I know how that makes me feel at age 51. Can you imagine how that makes a depressed young girl that's going through puberty at age 14, and all of a sudden something she said or something she did or something she posted finally gets positive attention? And sometimes that's the only positivity that children are feeling within them growing up. So you hit a sore spot with me, and that is social media. I mean, that's a huge one.
Yeah, our daughter's 14. As best as I know, she does not have an Instagram account yet, TikTok, any of that. I think 18 is a little, I think 16 would be great to cut it off, not allowed. I think it's just, to me, too obvious that you have an industry that's just 100x too powerful with capital that they've been able to skate through that. We are the best nation with innovation, but we're really creating such a problem that should be regulated to some degree. It's unfortunate. And I think 16, maybe for some of these social media platforms. And it's really unfortunate because when you look at TikTok from a certain degree, and I only imagine, but with certain interests that young ladies are getting, it's probably also not the right, if a mother or parent was looking and saying, oh my gosh, what is that dance and what are they wearing? And who actually on the back end is liking those and getting that attention? I mean, it just seems like, I mean, obviously I know there's education, there's other things on it, but that's the other thing, getting attention for certain things that might not be what you'd want to have likes for. So,
yeah, that's very true. And it's encouraging. The algorithms encourage just the attention, how long you're on the post, how long you're spending, how many times you click that account. There's so many things happening behind the scenes that the layperson, even myself, I don't understand really the bits and bytes of what programming has been put in place, but it's done to keep the attention of the consumer of that content in order for them to expose some type of product or service at some point. And that is very artificial. And although it's becoming part of our so-called natural world, it's a blend of technology and nature and how we grow up as human beings. But that is a different way of growing up. I don't know the age that we could say was the first generation that really started to being saturated into using the internet as a child and or as a teen. I would think that would be the generation right after me, the millennials. And that is a source of valuable research that organizations need to look at for the future generations, because that my generation, Generation Xers and the millennials have a very interesting perspective with the infusion of technology and how that impacted relationships, how that impacted raising children, how it impacted our perception of society, and how politics, and when I say politics, I don't mean Democrat and Republican. I mean the politics of life, and that is bigger movements and plate tectonics of things that are happening behind the scenes that us, once again, we don't have all the data, and how they're spoon feeding our society to think a certain way. And it disintegrates the basics that took a very long time for us to establish. And like I said, this could become a 5-hour podcast and we don't have that time. But I will say an example of what I'm talking about is the Constitution of the United States. And that is, if you started taking each of the Bill of Rights and you started comparing the disintegration of some of those rights that we have as Americans, and we compare it to how media bends it and how social media moves it aside, and how due process is thrown out the window because of the popularity of what the masses are supposed to think. Because if you don't think this way, we're going to cancel you. And then there's a fear of being canceled, of not thinking a certain way. So, I mean, Michael, you got me turned on, man. I'll tell you what, we could have easily you come back and blow up some of these individual issues, but it's kind of what you stand for with Planetary Health and First and Mars Next, and how you want things to be better for our healthcare system. We want to support our HCPs. We want to assure that they have the tools and the systems and the policies that take care of people. And we need to stop putting insurance companies' stock prices first and healthcare second. And that's exactly what's happened in our society right now, at least in America's healthcare system.
Yeah, and I've taken off healthcare. You know, it's health. So I think health is our own individual autonomy. So I think the best health is when we're engaged in it, and people want to be engaged. I think we've created a system that isn't working, we all know. And so whether it be eating better, I'm doing a keto diet, and then just trying to find out more information. I don't know why every doctor wants to put some 40-some-year-old on a blood pressure medication, statin, when it could be, what if I lost 10 pounds? And I'm trying, is that more evidence-based than the treatment of that? So I'm not trying to be contradictory to evidence, but, physical activity, sleep. So anyway, I'm going to now a reboot, sort of integral functional medicine, because I was tired of the 15-minute visit that didn't do anything. So anyway, I think healthcare is really more about we need to move forward. We just cannot. We're not going to be able to take care of all our and the cost is just going too high. And with our older population, so that's a big topic that I'm very fascinated with as well. So
I think that, Michael, that we are seeing pockets of well-positioned healthcare providers. In this case, the story I'm about to tell is pharmacists that are so frustrated with the way pharmacy care is paid for that they have taken a great expense of their own, as well as a risk, and have opened up cash-based community pharmacies that rip apart the status quo. They get rid of the insurance providers, and healthcare, aka pharmacy care, returns to the pharmacist, the physician, and the patient without any other individual being involved in the decisions. And that's it. And there's a purity to that. And I know that you say move forward, and I believe in innovation. I believe in moving forward. We love that. I love technology. I love AI. However, returning to the roots of what medicine and what healthcare was like in blending the evolution of medicine, which is the good parts of all the things that we've discovered over the last 100 years, combining that with the way that medicine was treated with the small town care provider back in the 1800s, the early 1900s, the mid 1900s, where a community pharmacist, a community physician, they knew each other, they knew the people they were caring for, they dialed into care. There was a lot of holistic medicine that was being used still. Compounding, Michael, where a pharmacist would literally take multiple ingredients based on what his patient or her patient were going through, and literally grind up that medicine into the bowl and pestle and give that medicine to now we're trying to fast food everything. And that's why I just got done talking to Scott Bruner, who's the CEO of the Alliance of Pharmacy Compounding. And he is going to Washington time and time again to talk about how compounding has to stay in place and actually has to grow in order to keep up with the demand of what are 345 million Americans over the next 10 years. Our population is going to blow up to. And he's saying compounders are, and just like you and I were saying before we started recording, you said sometimes pharma, we have to balance everything, right? There's so much good that comes out of our pharmaceutical manufacturers. These organizations are freaking amazing, right? What they've done. But just as much as there is good, there is negativity and there is bad being done from a profit perspective. And a lot of pharma companies don't want to see compounding expand because they want to put everything into one little capsule and control the distribution of how that medicine is being used, rather than going back to the clinician, the physician, and the pharmacist and saying, I could actually compound something very specific for this patient that your 30 milligram, Zyprexa just doesn't fit in this mental health situation. So talk to me about your experiences in that as well. And that is the customization.
The what?
Customization of medicine.
Yeah. I love what you were saying, because this was sort of what we were talking about last time when you came on my show. And I imagine what would be really amazing for our community, for our country, would to be returned when my father was a little, I guess it was called a soda jerk. And that was at the famously Main Street pharmacy, right? He was making the limeades and making the milkshakes. And that's where everyone went to hang out, you know, whether it be on a Friday night, and maybe I don't know all the data, but I would think if we could do a retail mixed use space where a primary care doctor, where a pharmacist could gather, where you could have that real estate, you could have a great coffee house, and that could be a business model to reinvigorate our towns and our cities, our communities, and you know, the pharmacy's right at the hub of that, and then food, a nice little grocery store. And I don't know what that would be called, but to me, that would lower the risk, because right now we've seen primary care groups going out, Optum getting out of it, all the different, and I know that it's a challenge. So that would be one thing, that reimagining how we deal with each other and communities and as a resource. And the other thing that I would hope, I just want people to know is with Planetary Health First, Mars Next, my discussion is probably 80% of my diet, my guess, is healthcare. But I would like to think, like globally and also with energy, if we don't have the right infrastructure, and I am excited because I will be doing a show very soon. They'll be broadcasting with the SpaceX, Jim Cantrell. He was the guy that Elon Musk called up. And I'll have Charlie Baker on, who's one of the few astronauts still alive that was at Apollo 16. And what does space and health have to do with anything? To me, anything of that magnitude, with the level of, you know, what could help, you know, reignite America and industries, to me, it shouldn't be like, innovation should not be siloed. And so that's sort of the other thing as well. And so I'm really glad that finally, after almost 100 episodes, I will have someone. NASA would not do it. It's just so funny. They're like, you do not have enough reviews on your podcast. It's so funny, the people that will come on your show and the people that won't. So anyway, I'll stop there.
Yes, we've all experienced that. I've stopped count of our collective as a network of how many episodes. I know it's nearing probably 4,000 over the years, and it's just it's wonderful to see how many creative creators, is that double meaning of the word, but they have barely become a source of information, that instead of me going to the news organizations, I go and see what a pharmacist has to say about something, and then double check the information based on links that are provided. And that's what I feel content creators in healthcare have to do. They have to raise the bar. They have to deliver content that is centered in something that can be referenced in order to move that issue forward. Because it doesn't mean that you have to put out a perfect podcast episode that's lined with medical journals and white papers, but it does mean that if you're talking about something that is digital health or digital therapeutics or some new medication for pain management or something, you have something that the listener can reference and be able to go to really become exploratory for them as a clinician and for them as a healthcare provider.
Yeah, like perfect example, when Change Healthcare was coming through with the cyber, I was able to reach out and have Christine Meyer, who is a provider. I think she has like almost 50 to 70 full-time staff. She's in New Jersey, and she was devastated by the Change Healthcare. And I still don't think she's been reimbursed yet. I don't know what's going on, but she was so vocal, really getting a lot of influence and a lot of traction. And she came on. I had some cybersecurity guests as well. And I believe with my whole heart that kind of information that was put out for other providers, doing an audit, getting the right insurance for cybersecurity, that is essential. And that's why I like kind of this kind of a bizarre title because I'd like to cover what I think is important. I mean, there is no healthcare if you don't have cyber, if you don't have exchange of information. And then she was actually testifying when the actual United Healthcare executive went to Congress. I think she was mentioned. So it's kind of cool to be able to be trying to be part of just those little nodes and dots to do, stuff that I would say genuinely creating more of a whatever, trying to do good, I guess, in the simplest way form.
The name of the show is Planetary Health First, Mars Next. The host is Michael Mann. If you are not linked up with him on LinkedIn, please go to LinkedIn, go to Michael Mann. That's with 2 N's, MANN, and you will find him there. Michael, promise me that you're coming back to TWIRx so we can dive into a multitude of different subjects that are coming up that are timely, and that we share content and we stay connected.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate, Todd, you having me on. And for anyone, just please, like he showed those links and whatnot, follow me on my Substack, and you don't have to pay. It's just, unfortunately, the Substack, that's their business model. So it's kind of, they try to get you there, but that's where you get me. Every podcast show I have, I put it on there. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. But I'm at 31,000, so it's a little harder to connect. I'm at my max. So, my email is michael@planetaryhealthfirstmarsnext.org. And thanks so much, Todd.
You're very welcome. Thank you for participating and being part of This Week in Pharmacy. We'll talk to you next week.
Awesome.